In C#6, you can now write functions and computed properties like lambda expressions to save an extra headache of defining function and property statement blocks. You can start writing your code that goes into your function or property. All you have to do is use the lambda operator and then start writing your code that goes into your function and property body. So in this lecture, we are going to examine C#6 expression, body, function, and properties. So let's go right here to the top. We have C#6 expression, body, and properties. I'm going to go over here and define a few properties. I'm going to put public string first name, and then I'm going to have it where it gets, and then I'm going to close it out right here, and then I'm going to set it equal to a name. So let's go right here and we're going to set it to the auto property initializer value that we want to associate. So I'm going to say John, and right there we have our property associated with our first name. Then I'm going to initialize another property, so I'm going to put public string last name, and I'm going to put a getter, and then I'm going to set it equal to Jacob. And right there, as you can see, I have two string properties associated with my first name and my last name. Now, typically what you would do from here, you would create a method that would return both of these in previous versions of C#. But in C#6, what you can do is you can create another property and set that property equal to the computed property of your first name and last name. And you can do that with the lambda expression. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's set another value, and let's put public string my full name, and I'm going to do the lambda expression. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to set it equal to first name, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of space between the two, and then I'm going to set it equal to last name. And now my property, utilizing the lambda expression, is associated with first name and last name. And this saves you a lot of time of having to get and set those values to associate with properties. You can use the simplified lambda expression to associate inside of another property, which in this case is my full name, to associate first name and last name. This is great for simplifying code to associate with your different properties. In previous versions of C#, what you would have to do, and let's put C#5 and below, you would have to come down here. We would create another public string, and we could say full name 2, and then you'd have to do opening and closing parentheses, and then you would have to come in here, you'd put a get to associate here, and inside of your get you would have to return the value associated with your first name and last name property, which is going to essentially be this right here. So we can just go ahead and copy this real quick. And once we have that set, we have our getter to associate with our full name 2 property. Look how much simpler the syntax in C#6 is compared to C#5 and below. So in this case, with the public string my full name, and we're setting it to my first name plus my last name, with the simplified lambda expression, compared to an expression body property in C#6, with that of a getter property to associate a full body expression in C#6 in comparison to C#5 and below, you can see how simplified the syntax is to associate a lambda expression to return two different properties inside of the my full name property. And then when you look at down here with the C#5 and below, it has a little bit more syntax to associate the getter and return statement right here with my full name 2 property. So this is the difference between C#6 expression body properties and previous versions of C#. We could do the same thing if we want to associate a method inside of our code. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to create a method. Let's say private double, and I'm going to click add. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to add two numbers inside of my method. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say double v double a. And inside of those two, then after I add my two parameters, I'm going to do the same thing with the lambda expression. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put v plus a. And there we go. As you can see, this is our expression body method with C#6. It's very simple. You use the lambda expression to associate the values you want to add that are associated with the parameters, and you would call that method the same way you would call any other method. But in C#5, you'd have to come down here. You would have to put, let's say, private, double, add 2, and let's create 2 double parameters. Now let's go this time. B, double, C. You would come inside of this method you're creating here, and you would return B plus C. Now, as you can see in this case, this syntax up here for the expression body method in C#6 is much simpler than implementing this C#5 method in below right here. You have to write less code to do essentially the same processing inside of your methods. So in this case, we associate the lambda expression. It returns 2 values associated with our parameters. And here with the private double add 2, the older syntax passes 2 parameters and returns the B plus C. So remember, with expression body methods, there's a simplified syntax with the lambda expression. You're associating some of that link syntax to associate inside of your methods, and you can implement that lambda expression to sum 2 values. If you go to your properties, associated up here with your expression bodied properties, you can auto property initialize 2 different properties in C#, and then you can associate that property return for 2 different properties you set before into one property as we set with my full name, which is getting the value of the first name property and the last name property. As you can see in C#5 and below, you have to write a little bit more code to get that same result, where you have to set inside of the get property right there, return first name and last name. It's much more simplified in C#6, and this is the way we implement expression bodied properties and methods inside of C#6. I want to thank you for joining me in this lecture. Have a nice day.